In order to traverse the path of true knowledge, over the course of time, we must gradually disassociate ourselves from the influence of mainstream misinformation. The problem in differentiating truth from fiction becomes ever more difficult in our chaotic times. This dilemma only exists because the modern individual supposedly has no gauge or bullshit detector. We only supposedly have no gauge of truth because most of the population is programmed to believe lies from a very early age. At this nexus, self-driven individuals who have either broken the shackles of conditioning or have been fortunate enough to not have been indoctrinated with failed, useless thought simulations will comprehend how damaging, limiting, and degrading these systems are to the development of the human being. Observing these vile methods from the outside, having one way or another maneuvered beyond these mind-crippling procedures, it is easy to look back and see how ridiculous they can be. From the perspective of the brainwashed, though, the view inside looking out is clouded with ignorance. These poor souls, usually trained since infancy to accept blindly whatever any authority figure puts forth, are far from being able to grok the truth in any situation. For individuals such as these, where is the path forward? How is it possible to guide misled people on a correcting course in a society with such a stay-in-your-own-lane mentality? It could be safely stated in general terms that half the world doesn't want anyone or anything telling them how to live their lives. The remaining half most likely need guidance outside themselves because they are not ready to take responsibility for their lives. Here now before us lay the polarizing viewpoints. To create a connecting path between the two, one must rise above their limitations. Seeing beyond the iron wall of one's own perspective is difficult in itself. Redirecting another's perspective, especially when that view can only witness existence through vision peering within a hole the size of a pinhead, or deeply more infinitesimal, is also very complicated. Anyone who has not traversed a pathway is remiss to describe the terrain, which is the very point where we find ourselves embedded currently, neck deep in the tragic failings of our species' history, surrounded by endless sleepwalkers and fools proclaiming they are the be-all end-all concerning the answers of existence. Now that we've waded into the deep end of this dialogue, it's time to cut through the lies of the mainstream without any further hesitation. In other words, if you haven't already, the time is now to cultivate and enhance your bullshit detector. The worst kind of person is one who tells you exactly what you want to hear every time they open their mouth. True honesty is always delivered with a barbed sensibility. Believing the lies spread throughout every facet of mainstream thinking, then stuffed down our throats, is the most comfortable way to live for weak-minded dupes. Doing so requires no critical thinking, effort, or demands on the individual soul. Children below the age of 13 should never be introduced to belief systems they are incapable of understanding, which, to be honest, are the very ones crammed into their fragile psyches by incompetent parents or authority figures who at one time were most likely victim to the same treatment. Our world has become prey to the endless cycles of ineptitude and apathy. The most troubling aspect of this truth is there appears to be no end in sight. As mentioned before, there are those who don't wish to be shown any truth, seeking it out in their own way, as well those who desire to be told anything, truth or lies, as long as there is no requisite responsibility involved. Hence, no change taking place in these spheres. With so many walls and traps in place, what is to be done? We should not be ones who willingly deliver unearned truths to the unprepared. So only this will be said. If you change yourself, you change a small part of the world. By becoming an exemplar of meritocratic standing, you will guide others who seek the path of freedom toward the proper spheres. Even when we find those willing to become something more than a drone in their lives, they can only be taken so far before they choose to walk on their own. The will to action should drive every endeavor. It is essential to understand there are no limitations to true knowledge. Individuals create plateaus in life by accepting mental comfortability as the norm. They avoid seeking beyond the surface so that responsibility for their actions never comes into play. Breaking through the limitations of mainstream knowledge is not an easy task. In the end, as with anything, it becomes about the choices we make. When reflecting on this dialogue, ask yourself, how can I see into the heart of things efficiently, with a clear heart and mind of my own? The answer comes readily to those who have transcended the lies of the past.